There comes a moment in your life when you begin to see things differently, not through the eyes of society, not through the beliefs of your family, but through something far deeper. You begin to see the patterns that govern human behavior, the illusions people live in, and the silent machinery of fear that drives almost everything. At first, it feels like waking up from a dream. You look around and realize how asleep everyone else still is. You see people chasing money, success, and validation, not because they truly want those things, but because they're terrified of being nobody. You see how people pretend to be certain about everything, when in reality, they're clinging to lies that keep them comfortable. And in that moment of awakening, something both beautiful and terrifying begins, the realization that truth can be lonely. Most people don't actually want to see the truth. They want reassurance, not awareness. They want to believe that life is a straight road, with clear answers and predictable outcomes. But when you see beyond that, when you recognize that life is a vast, flowing mystery that can't be controlled or fully understood, it separates you from the crowd. You start to notice how society punishes those who see too clearly. People who see too much are often called strange, cynical, or detached. You might try to share what you've realized, only to watch others look at you with confusion or even irritation. They think you're being negative, when in fact you're just being honest. They think you've lost your ambition, when really you've lost your illusions. Seeing what others don't is not a gift that brings comfort, it brings clarity, and clarity burns. It burns through false friendships, through shallow conversations, through the walls of identity that people build to protect their fragile sense of self. You find yourself unable to engage in the same empty pursuits he once enjoyed. The parties, the gossip, the endless noise of trying to prove yourself, they all lose their taste. You begin to crave silence, solitude, and authenticity. You realize that most people are terrified of silence because in silence, the truth echoes too loudly. That's why they keep running, keep talking, keep distracting themselves, because stopping means facing the void inside. The danger of seeing what others don't is that you can no longer unsee it. You can't go back to pretending. You can't laugh at things you now recognize as absurd. You can't participate in games that no longer make sense. And sometimes you wish you could go back, just for a moment, to the comfort of ignorance. Because awareness strips you naked. It doesn't make you superior, it just makes you more exposed. You see your own mind's patterns, your own fears and contradictions. You realize that awakening isn't about feeling enlightened, it's about feeling everything more intensely. The pain, the joy, the confusion, the beauty, all of it becomes sharper. You understand the madness of the world, but you also see its grace. You see that behind every lie there's a longing for truth, and behind every act of cruelty, a deep misunderstanding of love. And yet there's a quiet strength that comes with seeing clearly. You stop needing approval because you understand that everyone's judgment comes from their own limited perception. You stop running after purpose because you realize life doesn't need one. It simply is. The moment you stop trying to fit in, you begin to align with something far greater, the rhythm of existence itself. But don't mistake awakening for escape. Seeing clearly doesn't remove you from the world, it roots you deeper in it. You begin to act with compassion, not because you should, but because you can't help it anymore. You see yourself in everyone, even in those still lost in illusion. And that's where the real danger lies, not in seeing too much, but in forgetting to love what you see.
Once you begin to see what others don't, the world no longer appears as a fixed stage where everyone plays their parts. It becomes a living dream, constantly shifting, reflecting your own state of awareness. You notice how everything is connected, the way a stranger's anger mirrors your own hidden frustration, or how the beauty of a sunset suddenly feels like a message written just for you. The veil between the inner and outer world starts to dissolve, and you realize that the separation you were taught to believe in never truly existed. But this realization carries a price. The deeper you see into the nature of things, the more you understand that certainty is an illusion. You can no longer rest in the comfort of black and white thinking. Everything becomes fluid, paradoxical, true and false at the same time, and most people can't handle that kind of freedom. You start to sense that society is built upon agreements, silent contracts of collective belief. Everyone agrees to pretend that success is real, that time is linear, that identity is something solid and permanent. But when you stop agreeing, when you begin to see through the game, others will feel uneasy around you. Your presence alone disrupts the illusion they depend on. You don't even have to say anything. Your silence speaks. Your eyes expose. Your calmness feels like a threat. Because when someone who sees walks into a room full of sleepers, their very being becomes a mirror. And people don't always like what they see reflected there. They would rather turn away and protect their dream than question it. This is where the real danger begins. Not physical, but emotional and spiritual. The danger of isolation. The feeling that you no longer belong anywhere. You may find yourself drifting away from the people you once loved, not out of pride, but because the conversations that once felt alive now seem empty. You hear words, but no meaning. You see smiles, but no authenticity. You begin to realize that most relationships were built on shared illusions, and when those illusions dissolve, so do the connections. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you honest. You crave something deeper, something that doesn't depend on roles, expectations, or masks. And until you find it, solitude becomes your sanctuary. But solitude, though peaceful, can also test you. When you sit alone long enough, the noise of your own mind grows loud. You face every thought you've ever avoided, every fear you've hidden behind busyness. You start to see not only the illusions of the world, but the illusions within yourself. You realize how often you've deceived yourself, pretending to know, pretending to be, pretending to understand. It's humbling. It burns away the false sense of superiority that awakening can create. Because true seeing isn't about thinking you're special. It's about realizing that no one is. The ego dies hard, and it disguises itself even in spiritual clothes. It whispers, "You see more than others, you're ahead of them." But awareness has no hierarchy. The moment you believe you're enlightened, you're back in the dream. There's a subtle beauty in reaching this point, when the pride of awakening dissolves into humility. You begin to laugh again, not at others, but at the absurdity of existence. You see how everything, the suffering, the searching, the striving, is part of the same cosmic dance. You stop trying to fix the world, and instead, you simply love it. Not with a sentimental love, but with a quiet acceptance. You see the divine comedy playing out, the gods pretending to be humans, the infinite hiding in the ordinary. And even though you still walk among those who are asleep, you no longer wish to wake them up. You understand that everyone awakens in their own time, and forcing truth on someone is like pulling a flower open before it's ready to bloom. The danger of seeing what others don't isn't that you'll lose your mind, it's that you'll lose your place in the world you once knew. You'll walk between realities, belonging to none yet connected to all. You'll smile at the madness, the beauty, and the sorrow of it all, knowing that they are not separate. The deeper you go, the lighter you become. And though the path may feel lonely, it's not emptiness you're walking into. It's freedom. A freedom that can't be explained, only lived. And then, somewhere along the way, something remarkable happens. After all the confusion, the silence, and the sense of separation from the world, you begin to feel a quiet peace. You realize that seeing differently was never meant to make you superior or isolated. It was meant to return you to simplicity. The world no longer feels like an enemy or a stage of illusions to escape from. You start to recognize that even the illusions are part of the truth. The dream and the dreamer were never separate. The mind that created confusion is the same mind that seeks clarity, and the play of opposites is what keeps the universe alive. The more deeply you see, the more you laugh. Not because everything is funny, but because you finally understand that everything belongs. Even ignorance, even blindness,
even fear. You begin to see that everyone is exactly where they need to be, even those lost in their illusions. You remember that once you were lost too, and that your awakening didn't happen by effort, but by grace. Something within you softened, and life revealed itself. In that realization, judgment dissolves. You stop trying to correct others, stop trying to prove your truth. You become like the sky, open, vast, unbothered by the clouds passing through it. You let people dream their dreams, suffer their sufferings, and wake when they are ready. You love them not for who they pretend to be, but for the soul that quietly hides behind those masks. Because when you've seen what others don't, compassion becomes your natural language. You understand pain not as an obstacle, but as a teacher. You stop condemning the darkness because you've seen that light and darkness are two sides of the same divine hand. The danger of seeing what others don't is that the mind will try to turn it into an identity. I am the awakened one, the one who knows. But true seeing leaves no one behind. It doesn't make you the exception, it makes you the mirror. You realize that there is no you who sees, there is only seeing happening through you. And when the ego's claim to ownership fades, life moves effortlessly again. You laugh more, you cry more, you live without resistance. You no longer demand that life makes sense, because you finally understand that it already does. The chaos, the beauty, the heartbreak, the laughter, all of it is the universe playing with itself. You are both the player and the play. Eventually, the loneliness that once haunted you begins to melt. You discover that solitude was never the absence of connection, it was the presence of the infinite. When the noise of the world fades, you can hear life whispering again. The trees, the rain, the sound of your own breath, they all become reminders that existence never abandoned you. It was you who had turned away. Now, as you stand quietly in awareness, the world begins to feel alive again, breathing with you, through you, as you. You no longer search for meaning in things. You see meaning everywhere. Every leaf that falls, every stranger's glance, every fleeting moment carries a sacred rhythm. And you move with it, without effort, without fear. Seeing what others don't will never make life easier. In some ways, it makes it far more intense, but it gives you something that comfort never could: presence. The ability to be here, fully, without needing anything to change. To see the madness and the beauty as one inseparable movement. To hold contradiction without breaking. To love without needing love in return. When you live like that, there's no more danger left, only wonder. You begin to live as awareness itself, not someone watching the world, but the world watching itself through you. The eyes that see are the same eyes that created what is seen. The observer and the observed dissolve into a single dance. And in that moment, there's nothing left to fear because there is no other left to see. So yes, there is a danger in seeing what others don't, but it's not the danger you once imagined. It's the death of the false self and the birth of something vast, nameless, and free. Once you cross that threshold, you can never return to being asleep. But you also realize there was never anywhere to go. You were home the entire time. And now when you look at the world, you no longer see illusions or ignorance or even awakening. You simply see life, raw, unfiltered, and astonishingly alive. The dance continues, and you bow to it, smiling softly, knowing that to see is to love, and to love is to be.